My name is Barton Goldenberg. I'm the moderator. I want to start out by asking a couple of questions before my distinguished panel introduces itself. For those of you that are in the business side of your company, meaning sales, marketing, customer service, any on the business side, would you raise your hand, please? Okay, good. And if you're on the IT side of the house, would you raise your hand, please? So that's very interesting. I didn't expect that. It's more business than IT. Okay, good. For those of you, two more quick questions. How many of you are in the B2B sector? Please raise your hand. Wow, look at that. And how many are in the B2C sector? Okay, so B2B and business. That's what's out there. Okay, as you wish. Okay, that just helps me. I'm going to now ask each of the panelists to just spend a minute to introduce themselves. They'll be going into much more depth as we move forward. I do want to maybe introduce myself very quickly because I'm not going to give a dialogue, later on. But I want to bring to you three sources that I think are worthy of your consideration. One of them is a report that I just completed on I think it's called The Death of Traditional Training. I was the one who put in that speech thing in the little blurb, the abstract, will traditional training classroom be dead by 2027? I'm not sure it'll be 2027, but I am absolutely of the belief that classroom training is on the way out and VR training will replace it for so many reasons that we'll be discussing. So that's just something I wrote. It's a little guide. It's pretty comprehensive. You might want to think about it. The second one is a podcast, and that's one that a distinguished colleague of mine sitting in the front row, Tim Baharin, he's lucky, he's from Silicon Valley. I'm from Washington, D.C. And Tim and I have been working on this podcast for a couple of years now, a little bit more than a couple of years. And what we do is we cover companies that have been successful in applying particularly VR, XR applications in their business. And it's without a doubt that the best companies in the world all use VR training very successfully. So we would encourage you, go to the podcast, Apple, Spotify, my website, and you can pick and choose those industries and those companies that you find worthy of your attention. And then the third one is a resource center. Tim and I created that about 4 years ago because the industry was new and we kind of wanted to know what was everybody doing and is this emerging or is this here? So we're now at 363 use cases of companies that are successfully applying XR, VR, AR in a virtual world. And we're up to, I think I saw last night, 320 articles of companies that are using the same thing, XR, VR, AR, and we have about 160 videos of companies. And some of the work Tim and I have written, much of the work we've stolen from others, but it's a real good place. You can go in and say VR training, and up come the videos and the articles and the case studies. Or you could be a professional and say, I'm in sales, show me all the videos for that. Or you could say, I'm in the biotech industry, show me all things for that. So it's just a great resource that I want to recommend. So those are three from my side. I want to now go back to the panel, and Cortney, I'll start with you.
All right, so thanks everyone for coming. I'll try to keep this lively so you stay awake before we all go to happy hour. So my name is Cortney Harding. I have worked in this space since 2016. I've had my company Friends with Holograms since 2018. And it's been an interesting journey. We started sort of very much focused on the production side of enterprise. So we worked with Accenture, we worked with Coca-Cola, we worked with Verizon, we worked with Walmart, Lowe's, all of the kind of big players in the space, and we were helping them both conceptualize the projects they were working on and then actually building them. I took a little detour for a few years. I went to Meta to work on the Meta Immersive Learning Fund, RIP. That's a story for another time. And after that, I really kind of rethought what I was doing, and I switched the focus a little bit. And what we're focused on now is helping people learn how to create content. Because there are a lot of great content creators in this room, but I don't want us to gatekeep our knowledge, right? The only way this scales is if everyone can do this. If everyone knows how to create in VR in terms of creating training and learning, that's where the real power happens, and that's where the real growth happens. So for the last year and a half, I've been working with a lot of different partners to deliver workshops and teach and train So I start big picture, right? And we're going to discuss this later. How do you know what problem you're solving? Because that's a very critical step that a lot of people overlook. And then we figure it out from there. So that's what I do right now, working with a lot of great companies. And yeah, really excited to be here and talk through some of these use cases.
Thank you, Cortney. Johan.
Hi everyone, my name is Johan Cruse and I'm XR Business Development Manager for Volvo Trucks. I've been working in the learning area, competence development area for many, many years within Volvo Trucks. But since some years moving into VR and then XR.
And as you can tell from his wonderful accent, he's a Swede.
I'm a Swede, from the west coast of Sweden, if you've been there.
Thank you. And our last superstar, Jenny, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm, excuse me, Jenny Taylor. I have been in the utility industry for going on 20 years. My first decade in nuclear, so that's still my clean energy heart and soul. But digital transformation for several years since then, and leading our virtual crew XR lab. Built for utilities by utilities, which is pretty cool. And we have commission approval to sell externally now. So very different journey. We've been on this virtual reality, extended reality journey for about 9 years internally at Duke Energy, with about 36 to 38-ish apps being utilized today. And those are huge training suites, anywhere from qualifying field technicians, both in the gas and electric, which is first utility of a kind to do that, to simulations that our CEO gets people in DC and headsets, commissioners that are approving nuclear policy and that sort of thing. So we do everything from the simulations in DC to our qualifying our field technicians in the field, both gas and electric. So really exciting stuff, and we've been now on a new journey of helping other companies do the same thing for the past 3 years or so.
Thank you, Jenny. So you can see we have an absolute VR training subject matter expert, and we have two practitioners that have spent many years of their lives and are committed to bringing about outstanding VR training in two of the world's greatest companies, and they have a tremendous story to tell us all. So let me go to that story, and what I've asked them to do is spend about 3 or 4 minutes telling us their story. What is it at Duke Energy? What is it at, in this case, Volvo Trucks and some of the experience that Cortney's had? And I just want to kind of give you some tastes of how others are doing it with excellence. So let me go to a video first for introducing Duke Energy's VR efforts.
Virtual Crew uses technology to simplify and enhance worker training in a modern world. Virtual reality developers, alongside energy industry professionals, create realistic and immersive training and qualification modules. Train and qualify employees in a safe and more controlled environment. We currently offer modules for meter work, natural gas line repairs, outside gas leak investigation, right-of-way patrols, substation repairs, active attack scenarios, with more on the way. The possibilities are nearly limitless in a virtual space. Participants are more confident to apply their skills after virtual training. VR trainees can perform the same activities they would in a real work scenario and benefit because they train 4 times faster than in a classroom, are 3.75 times more emotionally connected, and are 4 times more focused. Virtual Crew can design and build a customized VR training and qualifications for your energy company, utility, or business. Work with us. Visit virtualcrew.io.
So just a little bit about Virtual Crew to kind of give you some background. Please visit our website. We've got a ton of demos of apps that are being used in the field today. But I think we stand out a little bit because people come to our group all the time and want to know, we want to do VR. We want the new shiny thing. We want technology out in the field. And I've talked with her earlier. You got to understand what problem you're solving for in the field. So how will it change the lives of the field workers today? What problem are you solving for? Don't just give them that shiny new technology and that shiny new thing and try to fit that square in that round, area. You want to make sure that you're solving the right problem and that the field workers who are using it, it's making their lives easier. So when someone comes to us, we don't always say, yeah, we'll work with you. We always say, what problem are we solving for and what technology can we use to solve for it? So XR is that whole umbrella, whether it's AR, VR, We can put some AI in there. We can do all these things, but we want to make sure we're adapting and we're building the right solution to solve the problems for the field workers today, because our goal is the same as all of your goal, probably more heads and headsets, right? How do we get more heads and headsets? Make it easier to use and make their lives easier by using it. So that's kind of where I want to start to talk about virtual crew, and I'll let you.
And if I'm correct, Jenny, VR training is an essential part of how Duke Energy trains technicians and many, many others. It's just the way you do business.
Not always. So I don't want to make everyone feel like all 40,000 employees are in headsets today. It's simulations that can change lives, whether it saves lives, it's more immersive. So it's not just everyone in headsets also. We do train in your traditional CBTs. We do train in your traditional classroom trainings, and we're trying to change the way we do business. But I think that journey, as everyone here knows, is not a quick journey, and helping them understand the benefits. I mean, you saw our stats up there. Those are very similar to some PwC studies y'all might have seen in 2020. Well, we did our own studies internally for the natural gas business unit to say, can we meet those? Well, we exceeded them, right? So we're able to see that immersive trainings somehow can change lives, can save lives, can reduce preventable vehicle accidents is our newest one we're working on. You know, like, how do we do this, but in a smart way that will help enable the lives of users, you know? So not everyone and everything, we haven't replaced everything yet. I don't want thousands of people do use it, yes. We are very big users of headsets, and we are very big users of simulations, but not every single thing has converted. Love it. I would want that. Yes.
Thank you. Johan, I'll give you the green is forward.
Yeah,
the red is
a
back.
lot of slides here, yeah. And I'm very happy to be here to share with you Volvo Trucks' VR journey to train technicians. And we had been using VR for several years, but that's changed the game, we can say. Do you remember? We were locked in our houses the year when COVID hit us all. We were not able to travel. We only joined meetings through Teams and Zoom. And it was anything than business as usual. But at the same time, the business needed to go on. And for Volvo Trucks, that meant that we launched a new truck during lockdown. And normally, truck launch consists of that we invite a lot of customers, dealer persons, journalists to global events. We also provide hands-on training for hundreds of technical trainers out in the markets. So to do that. And everything was converted into broadcast events instead, since we couldn't travel. So, but what about the trainers then that couldn't, how could we provide hands-on training for them? Which in this case was even more important than before, because this launch was the first heavy-duty electrical truck launch ever. This means that we need to train them on high voltage, 600 volts. Normally, we train our technical trainers how to conduct and the best quality on service. But this was so much more. It was a lot about safety. So that was the big difference here. And how should we do this then? Yeah, you all know we used VR for this. And we had been using, within the competence development department within Volvo Trucks, we had been using VR for several years. But if you think about Volvo, it's quite of a big company, 125,000 employees, 20,000 technicians distributed in 2,000 dealer sites, spread it out in 190 markets. And at this time, we only had 4 headsets available, and that wouldn't take us very far. And we also wanted to look into the multi-user environment, VR environment, multiplayer environment. And so that was the kind of story, and the rest is history. I have a long presentation around this, but I have just a few minutes. But to just give you a snapshot of where we are today then when it comes to headsets, each of these circles are representations of headsets, as you see here, the blue circles. And you see that we have most of the headsets in Europe, but we are getting there to spread it more globally, we can say. We have around 600 headsets out. You see that we started in 2019 with 4 headsets, and the ambition in the end of this year, we should have 1,000 headsets. And now we are around 600. It's a bit of strange text there, but maybe you can read it. 600 headsets, something we have now. And we started with the aim of heavy-duty VR experience and continued over the years to produce a lot of different content. We started with technical, but then we have explored the sales and marketing application as well, and any other kinds of applications. And to be able to provide this, we have a virtual training platform, but we're produced with the help of colleagues from the Group IT department, Volvo Group IT department. And we have the multi-user environment. We have an integration with our LMS system, which is called Navigator, which is Volvo's implementation of the Cornerstone on Demand, which is a huge LMS provider. We also have a spectator mode that you can join the VR experience through any kinds of device, through a PC as well. We're working right now on looking into VR authoring tools, so we can broaden up the production of VR content. I work a lot with VR dealer enrollment or onboarding activities, AI assistant, and also VR Expo, which we would like to use for bigger launches. We can be several hundred people in the same environment. So I think that was all for me. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So I just also want to make sure the audience knows a couple of things. So Volvo Trucks is a part of the Volvo Group. It is not Volvo Cars. It has nothing to do with cars. These are the trucks. These are, in this country, they're Mack and other brands, but they're also construction equipment, and they do a lot with inner city transport systems. It's an incredible company, and if you really would like to appreciate the value of the trucking industry, I would encourage you to listen to the Volvo Group's CEO, who did with his team an amazing keynote at CES 2025, where both Tim and I spoke. So I had the pleasure of seeing it and meeting him. But this is an incredible company. What is the famous expression he said? Success is to work hard and be curious at everything we do. And I just thought that was marvelous. So he works for a great company, and you're doing great work. Courtney, to you.
All right. Well, so unfortunately, I don't have any slides. Most of the slides that I use are proprietary either to myself or to my clients, so it's hard to show in a big room where it's going to eventually go on the internet and where people are sharing it. So apologies, you don't have anything to look at. You just have to listen to me talk. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle because I'm going to share a use case I worked on recently that could have gone wrong, only through a lot of inquiry, we made it right. So last year I got a call from a company that runs warehouses, and they said, we need forklift training in VR. We've had a lot of forklift accidents. This is a story I tell a lot, so if you've heard this already, apologies, you can zone out for a few minutes. Anyway, so this company says, we have all these forklift accidents, we need forklift training in VR. Great, totally fine use case. There's a lot of pre-built stuff on the market already. You can make custom stuff really easily, no big deal. But then I wanted to understand, okay, well, what exactly do they need help on, right? Because these are people that already have licenses, they've been trained, so is there a specific thing that they miss or they need to practice? So I went in and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna do this inquiry and get it done. And what I found was this. The actual forklift training, the forklift driving, was fine. These people all knew how to drive a forklift, and they knew how to do it well. What they didn't know how to do was pay attention and anticipate hazards. And the warehouses had changed their layouts. They'd moved to smaller warehouses, there were tighter corners, they were just different. And the drivers did not know how to anticipate how to look around blind corners, stop, look for hazards, things like that. So what we actually wound up building had nothing to do with forklifts and everything to do with paying attention and anticipating hazards. And this sounds very small, but it's in fact very critical, because if I just gone ahead and said, cool, here's how you drive a forklift and put it in a headset, nothing would have changed, right? The trainers, they would have done the training, it would have been fine, the numbers wouldn't have shifted, and then they would have looked at it and been like, well, VR is a failure, why did we waste money on headsets, forget it, goodbye, right? And so that's the one thing that I talk about a lot when I do my trainings, when I do my work with folks, is you have to start at the root of the problem. You have to understand what exactly it is you're trying to solve for, because that's the most critical thing. And then You have to determine, am I teaching a skill? So like how to use a forklift? Or am I teaching a behavior? Paying attention, being attentive, having your sort of antenna up all the time. Because those are two very different things. And I think this is where people get stuck, and this is why we need more people out in the field who have this expertise, teaching others how to do this. It's because when people think in this one-track linear way, they often miss a lot of the nuance around it. And then we get into issues of design and how to build and all of that stuff. But that, to me, I think is the most interesting and resonant of the most recent cases that I've worked on, because it really proves out the point. You can't just kind of do this at the surface level. VR training that works often takes a lot of layers and a lot of digging, and it's only when you do that type of inquiry that you can build something that really moves the needle.
Thank you, Cortney. So as you can see, we have some wonderful panelists, and I'm deeply honored to be the moderator of this panel. So all of us have read, including yourselves, in the literature, and Jenny kind of alluded to it, PwC did studies, and there's constant studies. They all reinforce the same thing. VR training reduces onboarding time from months to weeks, from weeks to days. These are all very well written, validated studies after studies. They'll increase retention rates by up to 60% more than the current rates. They'll reduce costs up to 75%. They'll increase the trainee satisfaction up to 90% more than they currently have. They'll give them the confidence that they need. So these are all well documented. And yet we still have some challenges in the industry because not everybody's adopted VR training. So I'd like to start with Jenny to my left, your right. Why don't you tell us in your own thoughts, what are the top 3 reasons why companies should invest in VR training?
Should?
Should.
Top 3.
Top 3.
For us, safety. I mean, that's paramount, saving lives. I mean, we're dealing with really high voltage, really dangerous equipment, very, safety. 2, save that money. Everyone cares about that bottom dollar, right? So how do you save money, whether it's travel costs? People are always scared about replacing the trainer. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to help the trainer and give them better tools to train more efficiently and quickly. You had to ask for 3. Let's see. I think quality. I think the immersion is really important because you can take a training 20 times by clicking through a PowerPoint slide and might not learn one thing or absorb one thing. But when you get that immersive training experience, it's going to stick with you. And you will, I know for me, like I can read something 100 times and maybe it's not going to stick. But if I'm actually doing something, like when I'm learning, I need to do it with you as you teach me. So if I have that immersion, I'm going to remember it because I just did it with you. So that's
Good.
my 3.
Good, you got all 3. Johan.
Yeah, I think I will agree to that as well. I mean, regarding safety, we have a high voltage truck. We have also liquid natural gas truck. If you cannot handle them correctly, you could be injured, so to speak. I also think the less need for travel, of course, very important. Since we have a lot of headset distributed, that you can join multi-user VR experience from wherever you are. I think that's also it's hard to keep it down to 3, but that's also one big thing as well. We have a problem within Volvo Trucks to have access to products and components. We are distributing virtual components and also can provide virtual products before they are even built, so to speak, so they can train on them before they hit the markets. That's one thing. And of course, to be immersed in a VR environment, the retention is much higher than other types of training. So that was 4, I think.
That's perfectly fine. Courtney.
They got them all. I mean, it's always funny to me because we sit up here and we can rattle off these numbers. I have these numbers like tattooed inside my brain the entire time, right? I'm running these numbers and I'm talking to people every day about this, and I still get hesitation. And what I find is a lot of the hesitation is just, pardon the very Gen Z expression, it's just vibes. I did a workshop for a fast food chain, I won't say which one, a few years ago, and this woman just got so hung up. I'll never forget this because she was so intense about it. She got so hung up on how are they going to distribute the headsets? How are they going to manage the headsets? Which is a totally fair question. But these headsets, at the end of the day, they're basically just Android devices. And I was like, well, you're a multinational corporation. You have laptops, you have phones. These are just other devices you have to manage. And yeah, you might need to hire 1 or 2 other people to do the sending and the management, but still, it's not that big of a deal. And she just couldn't let it go and couldn't let it go. And I finally realized, like, I was answering her questions in good faith, and then I was like, oh, she just thinks this is weird and doesn't like it for ... reasons. Right? And so that's the thing I run into the most, is even with these numbers, even with these case studies, even with these success stories, there's still a decent chunk of the population that just they can't explain why, but they just can't make the leap.
All right, we're going to get to that in a little more detail, so it's a very good point. I want to tell you a story. I got called up in September 2023 by a very large American insurance company, 200-year-old company, a wonderful company, in New Jersey, and they wanted me to do the keynote. They had something called the VR Day. The CEO decided to create a VR Day, invited me to do the keynote, and then I did some workshops. So it became clear as the day wore on that this CEO, unlike many insurance CEOs who have to be very careful, it's a very regulated industry. It's not the most exciting industry, I have to tell you, but it's a very important industry. But this CEO grabbed on to VR training, and he wasn't letting it go. And his top staff was like, have you lost your mind? I mean, do you even know what this is? He said, I really don't care. I want to have VR training up and running in 1 year in this company. And when we started there was a cocktail after the training sessions. We did 3 workshops, and we came up with 3 examples of VR training that could be used in the company, okay? And we finally, I'm just trying to think, is he serious? Is he going to build some of this stuff or let the company? What was really going to happen? And it was really during the cocktail hour when his tie came down a little bit that I realized this was important to him personally. So he said to me, I've got a son, and he's 22, I think he was, or 23, and he expects the company to interview him using VR technology. Because if he doesn't interview with somebody with VR technology, that's not the type of company, Dad, I'd ever want to work for. And his father's thinking, VR technology interviewing? We don't even have it anywhere in the company. And then he made many other points about why this was an important transition to differentiate this 200-year-old insurance company from the competition. Long story short, run it up 2 years. They received, we created a pilot and a prototype. We wrote a very extensive business case. In the insurance industry, you'd expect it to be big and thick, but it was a very good business case. It really showed incredible return on investment very quickly. And then we prototyped it with an AI-trained avatar. And the CEO he was so happy his dreams were coming true. And this year they're going to implement a full-fledged 33-module training for their contact center and claims adjusters. But it's not always the obvious. This was his son who was saying, Dad, I wouldn't work for a company that didn't interview me in some sort of an immersive environment. I just thought it was wild. Okay, second question. So you kind of touched upon this, Cortney. I'll let you start on this way. What are the barriers to entry that you see that make companies hesitant to adopt VR training? And you've touched upon this woman who just couldn't get her head around it as one, but maybe some other thoughts.
Okay, so aside from vibes, right, I think there's a couple things. One is, and this is a silly one, the sort of myopia around new technologies, right? So for a while, everyone was like blockchain. People were like, we got to do blockchain for a company. Do what on the blockchain? Who knows? Blockchain. Everyone kind of scuttled over there. And then it was like VR, and everyone kind of scuttled over to VR. Now it's AI, right? Now every company is doing AI. And some of them are doing it really in an interesting way. Some of them are doing it in a really absurd way. Some of them are trying to do it and failing publicly miserably. Klarna, hello. But you get my point. So people can only kind of focus on one emerging technology at a time, which is patently absurd, right? They are all interconnected. If you have not seen the World Economic Forum's Technology Convergence Report, please check it out. I worked on it. It's quite good, and I'm biased, but it's really interesting. So there's that, right? There's that kind of myopia around just working on one thing. Now here are some of the actual reasonably good reasons why people are resisting this. The first is the cost, right? Headsets cost money. Building content costs money. Even if you're just upskilling your internal team to build the content, That still costs money. You have to pay for hosting platforms. You have to integrate it with your learning management system, right? There are structural steps you need to take. The second is it can be challenging for to work with certain headset providers. Some headset providers have systems that work well for sort of managing a lot of devices, others don't. Some of the big headset providers like Vision Pro, for instance, like Vision Pro doesn't really seem to have an enterprise strategy at this point, as far as I can tell, right? It's a very expensive device. It's more of a developer device. They do have some use cases, but not many. They're just kind of not in that space yet. So there are structural issues and cost issues that are legitimate but addressable. And the final thing is, people in the companies are often not trained or skilled to understand how to create this. They're not empowered to create this. So they just see this as this like outsider thing coming in. And if we in fact get to a point where the people in the companies are skilled and empowered to create either using AI or 360 cameras or however they're going to do it, that I think will push the needle forward and push the ball forward. But that is something I'm working on, something a few other people are working on, but we're still not quite there yet with a good ecosystem of teaching people how to do that.
These are wonderful. Thank you, Cortney. Jenny, I'll go to the other side. And the barriers to entry you're seeing that would make a company hesitant to adopt VR training.
It's funny because I was going to say something completely different, and you really made me think about one of our toughest clients that day one said to us, my kid plays with VR headsets or my grandkid, that's what it was. My grandchild plays VR headsets during Christmas. We're not playing games at work. We're a utility. I mean, this is brick and mortar, old school utility folks. And we had to qualify electricians. And you do that in person at a substation. End of story. So it's like you look at him and you want to agree with him, but then you want to explain to him it's not a game. We're saving lives. And so being able to see the transition and help walk him through the transition to then, and he invested over $2 million in building the qualifications remotely, and seeing that transition from we're not playing games at work, because that's what my grandkid plays with, to then investing over $2 million to qualify his field technicians in real life and saving lives. Watching that transition just gives you chills. So I'm changing the answer and saying they don't want people playing games at work. Well, this isn't games, this is saving lives.
But this is also, so I've come back to this Bill Gates interview with David Letterman from, I believe, 1994 or 1995. It's worth watching. And what's interesting about it is Bill Gates talks about the internet 30 years ago, right? And David Letterman's like, oh, it's just a bunch of freaks and weirdos. And I remember, and I'm sure there were people who in the late 90s looked at the internet and thought, well, that's just, my kid uses that to chat with her friends about bands, right? And of course now, if you said that, oh, you only use the internet to chat with people about bands, you'd be laughed out of any room you were in, right? It's a thing that everyone uses. And so I think your story is really illustrative of this inflection point where a lot of people do think like, oh, it's just for games, oh, it's just for, the metaverse, oh, that's over, right? And what you're doing is kind of, amazing, because like you're taking those people and converting them. And I think that's where the change really starts to happen, is when this goes from like, my kid plays Beat Saber to this is something that I use on a daily basis.
So Johan, I want to slightly alter the question because I think the ladies have done a great job kind of giving multiple responses. Not so much the barriers to entry, but even in a great company like Volvo Group or Volvo Trucks, that's an awful lot of people that were trained, an awful lot of people that had to buy in. I remember your CEO said, this was not a snap decision. We had to get HR on board. We had to get training on board. We had to get the unions on board or whatever it was. It was a whole bunch of people. So the barrier to entry wasn't the technology, and the barrier to entry wasn't the desire to do this. The barrier to entry was putting the pieces in place within the Volvo Group to allow it to be successful. Could you address that issue?
Absolutely. There are so many different aspects on this, of course, and we're going from cool to tool. That was we have been working with for quite some time because I agree with you, it has been seen as kind of a game or a toy. But we have left that. one of the success factors has been that we have a big network of technical trainers, and some of them have been like ambassadors for VR training. And they speak to the other trainers in the other markets, and that has been a crucial thing to make this fly from a dealer perspective and train the technicians out in the markets. And also we have found another way, how should we distribute a headset, because that has been a hurdle for us, and we quite early in the process we come up with an idea to use exactly the same way to distribute headset as we distribute parts and special tools within the organization. So we have a huge warehouse in Belgium, and we put configured headsets on a shelf in that warehouse to the markets and dealers and even customers later on. They can buy the headset directly from this warehouse, and they are associated with the part number, so it's very easy for them to get hold of the headsets. So that has been also a way to kind of take down that kind of barrier to
I just remember the CEO said he was not going to move forward with these initiatives unless he felt very confident that the company was on board. He wasn't going to take the risk that it wasn't going to fly. That's a very clever and insightful CEO, in my opinion. Okay, next question back to you, Jenny. We don't rest on our laurels. Duke Energy has done some tremendous work. You've been spearheading that effort as a pioneer, and it's really been very, very impressive. But we now have AI as a dominant force in our industry generally. So as you continue to expand your VR training efforts within Duke Energy, how do you intend to integrate AI into these efforts? And I know you've already begun, but how do you see AI rolling out?
That's awesome. I love the fact that, first of all, Duke Energy's leadership team is innovative. And instead of saying, no, you cannot use AI, they said, why don't we build our own AI that everyone can use and get it out really quickly, pilot it really quickly. And so all these other companies, while you kept seeing this AI come out, ChatGPT and everything, and all these companies are saying, no, you can't use it. No, absolutely not. No, don't implement it. They're still going to use it. You can tell them no all you want, but they're going to go on their phone sideways and still use it, right? So Duke Energy's leadership is very innovative and technology first. And so they said, we'll build our own AI and chatbot and work with Microsoft and use Genie and do all the things that we're supposed to do, and Copilot and all that. But we'll allow our workers to use it the way we need them to use it, that is approved by Duke Energy. So we built our own AI internally. We are integrating now, hopefully soon. I'm pointing at one of our developers here. We are hopefully integrating it soon because we did some prototyping with some small modular reactors using mixed reality to talk to it and say, pull up this procedure, pull up this thing. How does this fuel rod? When do we refuel? What does it do? So you can educate yourself using AI, talking to it, or seeing this mixed reality small modular reactor and pulling it apart with a parts expander and getting to understand and educate yourself the way you need it so you can use AI. So instead of saying no AI, which some companies and big corporations are doing, people are still going to use it. So why not say, let's use it the right way? And so that's what luckily we've built. We have actually hundreds of employees now, that data scientists building our own AI, and we can implement it in ways we want to implement it, and they want us to be innovative so that employees are empowered to use it the right way.
That's absolutely a wonderful, wonderful point. Johan, I know that AI, and particularly some of the big lorries, as the British would say, becomes increasingly important, but can you talk a little bit about where AI is fitting into your current journey and as it moves forward?
Absolutely. We're looking into, together with the development team as well, an AI assistant, AI trainer assistant, because we have around 160 technical trainers within our organization, and the target group is like 20,000. So the bottleneck is to have access to a live trainer. So we are thinking, we're in the process of that, to develop an AI assistant or AI trainer in the long run, so to speak. So that's how we concrete are looking into that area.
Thank you. I'm going to go on to the next question. By the way, there will be, I think, about 10 minutes for questions. You can't ask the question out, from the audience. You have to get the room monitor to have a mic and walk to you, because this whole session is being recorded. So if you do have a question, you're thinking about it now, make sure you raise your hand, you'll be acknowledged. We'll walk around the room to wherever you are, we'll give you the mic, and then you can answer. okay? We just have to do that for recording purposes. Okay, let's see. I want to see if I want to be controversial or a gentleman.
Controversial.
Controversial? Okay. Well,
Oh, God.
I want to, so then I'd like to know this question. It's 2030. It's 2028. That's 3 years from today. What percentage of training inside a corporation will be VR training versus the old classroom training or computer-based training? How pervasive will VR training penetrate the organization? Courtney, I'll let you take the first stab.
On a good day, I would say it's going to be higher than it is now. On a bad day, I would say it's going to be the same as it is now, maybe even less. On a good day, I'm on an island somewhere because everyone's doing this and paying me to help them, and I'm just on a yacht. On a bad day, I'm working at Starbucks. I think it will continue to expand and grow. Like, I'm being a little facetious and sarcastic. When I say this, the expansion will continue. It will probably be slower than all of us in this room would like. Despite my kind of snark about a lot of things, there is a lot happening right now. I mean, Meta continues to invest and grow and put out new headsets. Apple Vision Pro continues to develop and grow. Google is putting out a headset at the end of the year. Pico is doing amazing stuff and partnering in enterprise, right? There is a lot of growth in the space. There's a lot of interest in the space. I've been in the space long enough to have been through enough bursts and winters and bursts and winters. And I think we're going to have a few more of these. But I think one thing will be kind of, and again, this is this thing I talk about a lot, right? Getting to scale. The only reason we're addicted to I have my phone in my pocket right now, the only reason we're addicted to those little screens is because there is infinity content, right? Headsets do not have infinity content. The biggest barrier to headset adoption right now is that you run out of stuff to do very quickly and you stick it on the shelf and you never pick it back up again, right? There's a lot of reasons for that. I think the headset manufacturers can shoulder some of the blame for not funding more content. And I think also people just are not trained and learn how to do it. So to have an ecosystem in headset like we have on a 2D ecosystem where everyone is empowered to create, whether you are Martin Scorsese or whether you are me taking a video of my dog and sending it to my friend, right? We need to make sure that grows. And if we expand that ecosystem, then I think we're going to be in very good shape. If we continue to gatekeep that ecosystem, I think it's going to be a much harder road.
Johan, 2028, what's
Yeah.
happening in Sweden and the Volvo group?
A lot. Our vision is that provide each dealer site with a headset. That means plus 2,000 headsets. So I expect that we will have a lot more VR training compared to face-to-face training. I'm not sure exactly about the ratio, but a lot more than today. That's the expectation, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think I just want to reinforce, so trucks don't get sold from Volvo to the person. They get sold through the dealerships. And that's a critical component to get the truck sold, the dealer. So if there's resistance, not from the customer per se, but from the dealer, then you won't be selling your trucks. Or if, for example, you put into place VR training at the dealership and the customer walks in and the dealer doesn't say, I'd like you to look at this through a headset, the truck doesn't get sold. So it's really a critical component, whether you're Caterpillar or whether you're Volvo, these dealerships become a critical issue in being successful in the expansion. Is that a fair understanding?
Yes, more or less. Yeah, absolutely. Not all the dealers are selling trucks. They're providing service on the trucks. There are certain dealerships that are selling trucks. But you're right, absolutely.
Okay, and Jenny, 2028, 2030, you can choose the year. Where are you going to be at with VR training at Duke Energy?
I know this is about VR, and you asked me a VR question.
I did.
But I think it's really important to understand the XR component of all this, because I don't think you can say everyone in your company by law has to be in this VR headset to train. I think it's important to have a mix of XR technologies to enhance the training you do today. So that's where I see it in 3 years, is using XR, not just VR, using XR to enhance these training solutions.
Okay. They're a wonderful panel. There's no lack of controversy and disagreement. That's good. So let me give you the last question. Here I'd like to kind of shoot for some real thought leadership. And you've actually, I'll go back to you, Jenny, just because you've started all this trouble. You know, I want to ask you where you see VR training playing out over the next 12 months. We have great companies, Volvo Trucks, Duke Energy, many of your customers, many of my customers that are all at different stages of their VR training journey or XR training journey. But for those in the audience, I'd like you to share with them your vision, if you will, for the next 12 months. What are we going to see in this industry, in the VR training industry?
Oh, I don't have a glass.
Crystal ball?
So yeah, crystal ball. So I'm like, that's something around. I don't know how to answer that one, to be honest with you. And thought leadership, I should know how to answer that, right? But I would like us to better our mixed reality options to make it easier to implement things in mixed reality in plants. So that's really important to us to be able to have that just-in-time training. So I think in the next 12 months, if we can focus more for that just-in-time, I haven't looked at this boiler in 10 years, yet I have to repair it and not die. All right, so what can we do in the next 12 months to make sure that is a reality for at a utility, our employees?
You know, I want to tell you that's actually a very important statement. It doesn't have to be bigger, faster, better. You can just take what you're doing and do it deeper and more pervasive. So for me, that's a great vision. Johan.
Yeah, I hope and I think that the usability of the headset must be easier to use them. Just put them on the head and they'll be more stable, easy to consume than today, I think, the content. Because we have barriers. We have provided a lot of onboarding material. We train a lot of people how to use it and so on. It needs to be more simple, I think that. And that's hopefully going to take place.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's clean and simple, but very important message.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you, Johan. And Cortney?
So I think AI is going to really supercharge the amount of content that can be created and the ease at which it can be created. I think the merger of AI and XR is going to be huge, and I think that's going to be the trend we see over definitely the next 12 months and on into the future.
Thank you. So now I'd like to open it to Q&A with the audience. We have a mic. We have a couple of questions on the other side of the room. Oh, you can start on your side, and then we'll move across to the other side. You can ask a panelist, or you can just in general ask the question.
Hi. Going back to what you talked about, percentage, right? Different use cases have a different percentage of the training that can be offloaded to VR training, right? Do you have, any of you have studies on different use cases and how much they can benefit from VR? And a second part of the question is to increase that. I think there is another step, which is training that requires some type of haptic feedback, right? Mm-hmm. So do you also have some insights in the cost effectiveness of creating some type of device that gives haptic feedback for certain tasks, like hazardous tasks? I used to develop a welding simulator, and which reduced training time by a lot, but still the traditional training is very
Let me give the panel a chance to answer your question. Anybody want to take a shot at, are there certain uses? It could be safety, it could be hazard, it could be that are more likely to move into VR versus something else, in your opinion?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hands-on training for safety, of course. That's a good use case, I think. When it comes to haptic, I have not so much experience at all about this. Only buzzing hand controls.
I think Duke does.
Yeah.
We do, yeah. So we actually got some feedback on one of the trainings that we were creating that it didn't feel like the real tool when they were cranking it, because it was a really heavy tool and it cranked, And so we tried to figure out ways. Do we buy the haptic gloves? Do we try, and actually our artists added physics to it to actually have the cranking and the weight and the motion and the sound, and it actually made the technician. That was just a little bit of feedback they got that could very easily be implemented into the training using the hand controllers before there was hand tracking. It's like 2 or 3 years ago, 2 years. Anyway, so the feedback was, oh wow, it does feel like more the tool now because I'm getting the haptics that was just put into the physics of our current solution without having to have the gloves or anything like that. But that was a quick fix to where he was like, this doesn't feel like my real job. This, I'm not getting, and that quick fix, adding that haptics really made a huge difference for that training module.
So I want to add a perspective. For 40 years, I've been applying leading edge technology to companies, global companies for the most part, in sales, marketing, and customer service. So I have a definite bias, okay? But the runway, as we say, for applying VR for sales and marketing and customer service, particularly service, followed by sales and kind of marketing, but they're somewhat equal, that's the big opportunity. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many salespeople run around this country and don't know what they're talking about half the time? Do you know how many customer service people can't answer the most simple question and annoy the heck out of somebody calling in? Do you know how many marketing ads are, not necessarily telling everything and could be seen as, questionable? And that's the area I see training happening. I just want to make that opinion. Okay, next question. Go ahead.
Question is for Johan, but if the ladies have an opinion as well. How are you using it for third-party certification or testing within your actual experiences, and do you have any requirement for that kind of certification? Thank you.
When it comes to certification, we are planning to start to use, because if I interpret your question right, we have a demand to recertify our technicians when it comes to electromobility. And the market is doing this every 18 months. So we are planning to use VR for that. We will start the project after the summer vacation, together with the Swedish Research Institute. We'll do that, because that's a game changer, of course, if we can make that fly. Because it's a bit of a cumbersome situation as it is today, when all the markets need to take in all the technicians for maybe 1 hour training. So instead use it by VR.
Thank you, Johan. I have time for one more question. I look at all these hands. You can come up to us afterwards. We're nice people. We'll stick around for a few minutes.
Sure. Hi, my name's Jonathan. I teach at the University of Maryland's Immersive Media Design program. And so we think a lot about career readiness. And so I'm going to kind of ask a question sort of wrapping around the idea of VR training to ask really any of the panelists, what do you need from your collaborators or your employees to be good in this space, to help you make best-in-class VR training? Or is it skills or behaviors, to kind of piggyback on what Cortney was saying? So I'm curious, how do I help set up the next generation to come in and be great collaborators or employees for you?
I will open it to whoever would like to answer from the panel.
I would say, the people that I enjoy working with the most, it has nothing to do with their technical ability, right? It has everything to do with their ability to be challenged, accept challenges, have open and honest conversations, slay their sacred cows, to be corporate speak, right? I think more broadly, and I'm glad you brought this up, because more broadly, when we think about the future workplace, AI is going to be disruptive. The amount of disruption it causes, I think, will vary, and it'll sort of shake out as we go. But it's going to be disruptive no matter what. And I think teaching people those more critical human skills, how to be a good listener, how to be a good collaborator, how to be a good manager, those are what is going to be universally valued. Because a lot of the skills that I think we valued for a long time, AI can do those. AI cannot, think in a way that we can think. So I appreciate your question a lot.
I think it's a whole course curriculum, and this is not a simple answer, but it's a great question. Okay, time's up. These thing flashes at the front. I want to just remind you of a couple of things, and we'll close the panel. I'd encourage you again, this is a very interesting document. I just finished it. You know my biases. I think that VR training is well on its way, and I'll take your point, Jenny, it's very good. It's not just VR. Okay, it could be complemented with others and what Johan and Cortney said. But that's an interesting study. Can you go to the next one, please? Tim and I have done many, many, many case studies. Every single great company that is using VR, XR, AR technologies, regardless of the headsets, are doing VR training. It's universal, and it's always very interesting. We just did Gucci, and we did Caterpillar, and we did Volvo, and we did, I don't know, every 2 weeks. Every one of them has at a core the use of VR training. And the next slide, please. And if you really want to kind of, no, the other way. If you really want to learn about VR training cases, all the ones that I talked about, it's the AI and Spatial Computing Resource Center. And I would encourage you to go there, look around. There's hundreds of case studies, hundreds of articles, hundreds of videos. Just learn. Just play around. Look at what other people are doing. Listen, we have had a definitely distinguished panelists. No shortage of disagreements, no shortage of opinions, but it's been a great panel. Jenny from Duke Energy, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Johan from Volvo Truck,
Thank
you so much.
Thank you.
And Courtney, thank you so much as well. And thank you all.
Thank you for being a great moderator.